Quickly, can you address that, Senator?
Trump lost the election.
Can you address that, Senator? I mean, can you say definitively the election was not stolen?
Yeah, I voted to certify the election. There was some mail-in balloting chicanery out there, but no, I voted to certify the election. President Biden's the president. And whether
Did he win the election?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, what about all of the candidates out there who are trying to say that he didn't? Your Republican candidates that you want people to vote for?
Well, what about the people saying defund the police? You talk to them, I'll talk to that crowd.
Right, your crowd is a lot larger than my crowd.
Okay, so to be clear, Lindsey Graham delivered that line. If you're only hearing this as, yeah, well, you talk about the defund the police. My entire political movement has been overtaken by a fundamentally anti-democratic, proto-fascist ideology, but what about the people on your side that think we should redirect a little bit of public funds to people who are better situated to deal with crises as they occur? Oh yeah, and he turns away like it was a mic drop moment against Bernie Sanders. Now, we're gonna have a lot of Bernie Sanders response, and he really sticks it to them on the big lie and everything. But Yasmin, what did you think about the attempted whataboutism from Lindsey Graham there?
First of all, I don't know why anybody listens to anything that Lindsey Graham has to say anymore, because he's so not credible anymore as a public figure. He's flip-flopped on so many different issues that, it's hard to keep track of his stance on things anymore. But then, yeah, it's an incredible false equivalency between people who want police reform, a reform to a public service right here in the United States that affects literally every American, versus the people who want to insurrect the Capitol. I don't know if insurrect is a verb, but I'm gonna use it as one. But these people, it's not the same thing. It's very much not the same thing. It's what you said, it's these people who are asking for public funds to be redistributed into society instead of giving, billions and billions of dollars to police forces across America, and instead putting into programs that would actually help people, compared to people who just choose to believe a big lie that was perpetuated and started by Republican leaders, including Donald Trump, who was then president, and then pretending like that's the same thing. It's not the same thing.
No, it's not the same thing at all. Also, it didn't happen.
And it didn't happen.
We didn't do it. Like, some people had the idea and still do, and nobody in power listened to them, and so nothing happened. So how is that equivalent? It's not. Lindsey Graham knows it's not. It's supposed to stand. Like, he knows what his party is. I'm sure that 60 years ago, when he was a young senator, he probably had no idea that his party would descend to these disgusting depths. And now he's trying to find a way to stay relevant, I guess. Well, no, this is your party. They all believe that elections are only valid if they win. That's it. That's their if they have any connection or commitment to democracy, it's that it only matters if they win. That's it. That's your party. You go deal with that. But I want to give you a little bit more of what Bernie Sanders had to say on this particular issue, and then we'll get to more fun stuff from Bernie Sanders. He says, now that happens to be what we call a big lie. And yet many of the Republicans that Senator Graham are asking you to vote for are maintaining that. What does that mean? It goes beyond Trump. It goes beyond the 2020 election. It means what they are saying is the entire system. You can't trust anybody. And if you can't trust the election results, then what is the obvious alternative? We need a strong man. All right, conservatives went to, I think it's Hungary, to meet with Mr. Orban, talking about Viktor Orban, who runs an authoritarian type society. So the struggle we are facing is not just that Lindsey and I disagree on this or that issue, which we do. It is the future of American democracy and whether we move to authoritarianism based on, among other things, a very big lie. And Bernie was right. I believe this was just earlier today, the Washington Post identified more than 100 Republican primary winners who have stated they agree with the big lie on one level or another. That the indisputable fact that Biden won the election is inconvenient, and so we reject it. That is hardly the same thing as some progressives pushing what some others might think is a bad frame on reform for the police or whatever. It's BS. We don't have to dignify it. But they have identified, Bernie has identified the major issue here, which is that creeping authoritarianism. And yes, I assume that his reference to Hungary piqued your interest. I know that you care more than most about what happens in other countries. So what do you think?
Well, I mean, wasn't Tucker Carlson even broadcasting his show from Hungary for a little while, if I remember correct? Yeah, and it is really concerning. I mean, Hungary was one of those countries that was a concern, or I guess kind of still is, regarding Finland and Sweden entering NATO. They thought that Hungary would be the one to block those countries from entering because they're so in cahoots with Putin and with Russia, right? And these are also the people that the GOP is aligning themselves with. They're choosing to align themselves with these people. And in the meantime, they're trying to create, again, these false equivalencies between actual issues facing American people and blowing off accusations of authoritarianism that's trying to take over the United States, right? That's a real concern. We had an actual insurrection. We had a president who did not want to give up his democratically elected. He didn't want to give up the presidency because he lost the election, is what I'm trying to say, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, all these things are, the first time they've happened in our history and in a real way, at least since the Civil War, right? And you can't see something like what happened on January 6th at the Capitol and then shrug it off and then still be in cahoots with Viktor Orban over in Hungary.
Yeah. Well, Lindsey Graham has found a way. That's his party. He's not super influential inside of it, but that's what he wants to do.
For more political news, breakdowns, interviews, stories of activism, and me trying my hardest to care about the occasional big celebrity news story, subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/The Damage Report. And you can ring the bell wherever it is so you don't miss anything.